Look, these sorts of pullbacks, they happen quite a lot. I think if you look back at the 2020 to 2021 cycle, it was a similar sort of pattern. There was a big pump and then there was a big fall off. And that was really the first part of the really big cycle up when things just blew off and that sort of real FOMO kicked into the market. I expect that's what's coming next.
Cryptocurrency markets have crashed. Bitcoin is down almost 25% since January alone. Ethereum has halved since December and Solana has halved since January. But is the crypto crash just another buying opportunity? And how can you tell when to buy back in? I'm joined by Southbank Investment Research's cryptocurrency and tech expert, Sam Volkering. Sam first told me about buying Bitcoin in 2012, and he's since guided his readers through rather a lot of bull and bear markets. So Sam, what do you make of the current correction?
Well, it's definitely that, Nick. It's a correction. I wouldn't say of epic proportions. I've seen them bigger and scarier than this, but it's enough to rattle people that may have invested in Bitcoin in the last, 18 months, 12 months or so. So in that instance, it's a big correction, but it's just another big, I guess, part of the cycle that comes with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies over the long term.
Take us through some historical comparisons here, because I know you vividly remember some of the previous bear markets. Where are we sitting? Where are we rating compared to those other examples?
Yeah, look, it's hard to say compared to other cycles because each cycle is different and each of the events that drive the cycle are different. I would probably say that this is still actually a relatively early part of the most recent cycle that we've seen. And look, these sorts of pullbacks, they happen quite a lot. I think if you look back at the 2020 to 2021 cycle, it was a similar sort of pattern where towards sort of the end of the year, there was a big pump and then there was a big fall off. And that was really the first part of the really big cycle up towards, I think it was April, when things just blew off and that sort of real FOMO kicked into the market. I expect that's what's coming next. This is what, I guess, if you've been around these cycles long enough, people would say this is a bit of a shakeout. Again, these terms are used, quite a lot, but it's really just, I think, another part of the cycle that we're seeing play out this time around.
Yeah, it's easy to think about how those terms that are thrown out by a lot of the experts are a bit manipulative and they don't really have any true meaning. Were you expecting shakeouts like this to continue, given how widely adopted Bitcoin has become as an asset class by even?
Yeah, look, I think you got to put things into perspective a little bit here is that, and we've said this previously, the higher the number goes, the bigger these appear to be, but aren't actually necessarily any different from previous cycles. So, when you're at $100,000, a 10% shift is $10,000, right? So that's a big number. It wasn't that long ago that an entire Bitcoin was worth $10,000. And now we're talking about that kind of movement intraday. So the numbers in terms of fiat currency are bigger, but the actual percentage swings are relatively standard for what we see in most of these cycles and for the volatility that usually comes with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So it's a pretty standard kind of patterns. It's pretty standard kind of action, to be honest with you. It's just that the numbers are so big and so eye-wateringly big that it terrifies people.
I'm usually interested in buying more cryptocurrency after corrections like this happen. My worry is that they can often be followed by what is known as a crypto winter, so a period of prolonged sideways movement in cryptocurrency prices. If you're wrong and we don't get a continuation of the rally that we've seen over the last, I don't know what period you want to choose, and we do get a crypto winter, what should investors be doing then?
I mean, look, I think that it's a long-term investment game here. As I've just said, it's highly volatile. So trying to time this market is next to impossible. So you can't really take a short-term mindset to it. It's certainly something that's got to be a long-term game. And the best way to smooth out volatility, whether it be the stock market or the crypto market, is like a regular investing plan, like a dollar cost averaging, because you can't necessarily predict when the market moves. This market will shift 10% down on a Sunday afternoon. people usually aren't ready for that or prepared for that or even know that that happens because they're off doing stuff on a Sunday. So again, I think the smartest approach, if you want to invest in this market, which is clearly high risk and clearly volatile, is to have a regular plan with capital that you can afford to invest in the market. I think that's the smartest way to play it because, as we know, it smooths out volatility.
Are you worried about growing correlation between crypto markets and the rest of the stock market, given that both seem to be in trouble lately?
I don't care. I don't care about the stock market when it comes to the crypto market. I mean, I care about the stock market. Don't get me wrong. I think the stock market's a really important part of an investor's strategy and portfolio and so forth. But I mean, whether Bitcoin tracks the stock market, I don't necessarily agree to that. Yeah, I mean, yes, it moves in similar patterns because you have big investment managers now obviously investing in these, and they like to switch risk. They invest based on risk. And when there's risk on and risk off, they're going to get in and out of highly volatile assets, which, in the stock market, there's plenty of those too. So, yeah, it can follow similar patterns from time to time. But then there are times when it completely is uncorrelated and Bitcoin blows the roof off, or vice versa. So, again, whatever's happening in the stock market, I don't really care when we're talking about the Bitcoin market, so to speak.
It sounds like you're arguing basically that the price corrections in the short term is just noise, as we call it in financial markets. It's something that you might as well ignore as an investor. What you should not be ignoring, according to your own predictions, Sam Volkering, is this topic of the strategic cryptocurrency reserve that President Trump has sort of launched, is always about to launch. I don't quite know what to make of it. So there's been some news over the weekend, though. Take us through what's happened.
Okay, so the US has launched a strategic Bitcoin reserve, signed into law as an executive order by Trump. They are holding a portion, an allocation of Bitcoin as a treasury asset that they will not sell. That's being initially seeded, funded, capitalized, whatever you want to describe it as, with Bitcoin that they've already got through seizures and forfeitures. The plan is to, if they seize or through their prosecutions of criminal and illegal activity, come across more Bitcoin, that will go into the strategic reserve and that will build up the strategic reserve. They will not sell from the strategic reserve. And there's a process in place that allows the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary to acquire more Bitcoin for that strategic reserve, as long as it's budget neutral. Budget neutral, you can argue 1,000 different ways of what that might mean. Could mean selling some gold from Fort Knox to buy Bitcoin. Who knows? Could mean using surpluses if they ever generate one. So look, there's a lot of different ways, but the way that it's set out is that they can acquire more, whether we like it or not. It's there. The world's largest economy now has a strategic plan for the management of their own Bitcoin, Bitcoin that they acquire, and then also Bitcoin that they may purchase. That's, again, love it or hate it, that's a very significant change in the global awareness, adoption, attitude towards Bitcoin as an asset. So again, yes, it's the government very much against the whole point of why Bitcoin exists, but at the same time, it's a free and open asset class network, so they can do what they want. But it is a very significant change in attitude from a very significant player in the global markets. And I think that when you put that into the long-term perspective of the progression of Bitcoin in our world, that's a pretty important event. So you can't ignore that. The short-term stuff and noise and volatility around it, everyone was like, oh, they're not going to buy 1 million Bitcoin tomorrow off of Coinbase. And it's like, yeah, well, they're not. They never were. They were going to put strategic plans in place to make sure that they could acquire it. And I still think that they will. I still think by 2030, I expect that the US government will hold 1 million Bitcoin. So as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing in the executive order or the plans that they've announced so far that changes my view on that. And so long term, when you put this into perspective, it's a very bullish catalyst for the entire market, really.
And so the short-term price reaction, which has not been good to the announcement because it was considered to be a disappointment, it doesn't bother you at all?
No, not at all. Again, people blow up their expectations of what's going to happen in the short term. And as I've said before, the strategic reserve, we said the strategic reserve was going to come. It has. We said that they're going to acquire more Bitcoin. They haven't announced that they will, but they can. That's literally written into the executive order about how they would go about acquiring more Bitcoin. So I expect that they will. And don't forget, it's Scott Bessent and it's Howard Lutnick that are going to make these decisions. Probably the two most pro crypto, pro Bitcoin people in Trump's entire administration. Frankly, I don't think Trump cares. I don't think he knows about crypto. I don't think he knows about Bitcoin. I don't think he cares about it. I'm not even 100% sure he can read. When those executive orders hit his desk, someone else is reading what they're about to him, and he's just signing them. I don't think he cares. I think this is a promise to get more votes, and that was achieved. And I think it's Lutnick, and I think it's Bessent, and I think it's Sachs that are really going to drive this forward. So if you sort of take Trump out of the equation, those guys are still going to push this pretty hard. But it's going to be done properly with the right strategy in place over the long term, not in a month. But ultimately, that's a very bullish catalyst for the entire industry, because then again, that fosters growth in America for the crypto industry, and it provides a much more positive framework and I guess industry opportunity for people in America. Again, sort of biggest market for crypto there is, to develop and flourish. So again, this is all very positive momentum, really. Just the price isn't necessarily reflecting that at this time.
Have they explained in any sort of detail what they're going to be doing with the Bitcoin, or why they're gathering reserve? Is there a chance of down the line the government accepting payments in Bitcoin, or some sort of vague sort of reasoning behind why they've chosen to do this, other than to try and generate some positive sentiment in the industry as well as the prices?
Yeah, I mean, and look, Sachs mentioned it when they did the executive order. They had a lot more Bitcoin, and that was being sold off over the years. They reckon it's cost the US Treasury or the US government or the taxpayer around $17 billion in sales, because they sold it too early and they didn't hold on to it. So they really had no formal way of actually managing their Bitcoin. They don't even know necessarily where it is or how much they have. And if you think about the value of an asset that size, that they really have no idea about what it's doing and where it's going, that's nuts, right? They wouldn't do that with gold, or granted they purport to not 100% know what's in Fort Knox, but again, without the right kind of strategy in place, anyone could more or less do whatever they wanted and sort of get away with it. So they've at least got the framework in place now to do something properly with it. The reason that they're doing it is because, look, maybe they've said, look, they've seen the trajectory of it, and they think that, guys like Sachs and Lutnick and Bessent think that long term there's probably going to be more value there. So it would make sense for them to hold a significant portion of it, especially if they've already got some, and if they're going to grow an industry that's a very big economic opportunity for them in America, be it through the miners, through high performance computing and data centers, the stuff that, helps secure the Bitcoin market, but then also helps look towards securing their AI future as well. These two things are intertwined, really. So when you sort of put that into play about their attitudes towards crypto and AI, and then you look at them actually having a proper strategic framework for Bitcoin, again, this is all many pieces of the puzzle are moving but slowly piecing together here. And ultimately, that's an opportunity within America's economy and an opportunity within the crypto industry.
I would also argue that it creates the risk of when an administration changes its ideology, then they could be dumping these Bitcoin. Well, I suppose they have been with, as you say, they've already sold a lot of them. But it creates the risk both ways, right? Which is the worry for me.
Yes, but at the same time, you then don't get an administration that probably gets into power if all of a sudden you've got many millions more people that are holding this kind of asset, and then they come out and completely reverse the entire policy around it. It's a bit like when Trump promised that there'd be no tax on tips, and that was one of his big platform policies. And then all of a sudden the Democrats were like, "Oh, that's a pretty good one. We say it too, no tax on tips." And then if they would have then reversed that, they'd lose all of those, the huge amount of millions of workers in America that generate a lot of their income from tips. Same principle here, really. I think if they would have come in with a very anti-negative policy on this, which they had previously had, clearly cost them a lot of votes in an election, maybe even cost them the election, it would be suicide. I mean, they just wouldn't get into power.
Yeah, it's a good way to capture a large group of voters. Can you take me through the battle that's going on between Ethereum and I think it's Solana? Both prices have absolutely crashed, but there's a lot more going on between the two over what they can actually be used for and how similar they are and how they're different.
Yeah, I mean, this is tricky, right? I mean, we say there's a battle. There's not really. I mean, nothing's really in direct competition with the other. Ethereum's an early mover and certainly is viewed as somewhat of the world's computer. You're definitely able to do more programmatic function within it around, be it money or decentralized finance. Solana has kind of become known as the blockchain for meme coins, and it's got a sort of identity crisis. But then there's a lot of DeFi applications getting built on Solana as well. It is faster, it is cheaper, but it's not necessarily as reliable. So there's pros and cons to each. I think that you will see both become a important part of this crypto industry that they're setting the frameworks up for in America to flourish. And then the price of reflection of that, the Solana thing is related to a lot of Solana was due to be released into market from the FTX bankruptcy from a few years ago. The Ethereum price, it's hard to say exactly what is or isn't moving that. There's still a lot of guys in that administration that are very pro Ethereum, pro Bitcoin, pro crypto. And I think that what we will actually end up seeing is a very big shift towards the use of stable coins within the US economy. The idea of things being able to be paid in stable coins, I think they will be cross-blockchain compatible, which they already are now. So it's very easy to move USDT stablecoin, a US dollar stablecoin from Ethereum to Solana. So you end up with multiple blockchains entrenched within the entire economic system that is getting built here. And that also then allows for things like you say, will that mean people can pay for things in Bitcoin down the future? Like you can already pay, you can integrate Bitcoin into a Shopify store. If you've got an e-commerce store that uses Shopify, you can use BitPay or Crypto.com or many other different providers, integrate that into your store and accept Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, a lot of Solana coins as well, Solana itself, Ethereum, whole bunch of options. So that sort of framework is already there. They're now, I think, moving to make it more ingrained in sort of the entire economic system and commerce within America. So there's a lot of stuff happening that doesn't always just get done in a couple of weeks because it is moving a giant ship. We're not spinning on a little carousel here. We're moving in the world's largest economy and trying to bridge this gap between centralized traditional finance and decentralized finance. And that's a big thing that takes time to do.
Well, I'm not interested in buying crypto till I see even lower prices. I'm worried that this is a little bit more than a correction, even though I'm just as convinced as Sam the price go up in the long run. However, I do think there are buying opportunities emerging in the AI space, the artificial intelligence space. And Sam, you're not just a crypto expert. You spend a lot of your time on tech and you've been focusing on AI a lot. You've got a report out which helps people try and enter this space in sort of creative and indirect ways. So take us through that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I kind of mentioned it a little bit before, is that there is a bit of a convergence between Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners and AI and the AI industry. Fundamentally, they are both leveraging high performance computing. I've been researching and studying AI for, again, as long as I've been doing it with crypto as well. I write AI Collision, people may be familiar with. If they haven't, I'm sure there'll be a link to sign up to AI Collision as well and get access to my report on AI and AI investments and the best ways to invest in the AI market. I write AI Collision daily now. We've amped up the frequency on that because there's just so much happening and so much progression, so much capital flow coming into the AI market as well, that it's a huge opportunity and people really need to get their head around the best stocks to be looking at and weighing up, how this industry is moving, where the money is moving as well, and where the money is being invested, because frankly, it is going to be the dominant theme in technology for at least the next decade or beyond. So if you're not investing or at least getting some sort of exposure to AI at this point, you need to get clued up, switched on, and get into it.
So there'll be a link in the description and the comments section below to both AI Collision and that particular report that Sam mentioned there. Everyone at home, thanks for watching, and Sam, thanks for coming on again.
Pleasure.